It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this. We are doing a special little thing here. Me and Mike decided, hey, there's no news happening. We need to make our own news. And so we've decided that we will go to tiermaker.com and create content from whole cloth. And that means
that's what all the YouTubers do now. Plus, we're actually deciding things again. How about that?
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, exactly. So GamesBeat decides. What are we deciding? We are ranking the Nintendo consoles, and I guess we're gonna do this together. This is not an individual act. Me and Mike have to agree.
Consensus. Yes. And I think we kind of agree on Nintendo consoles. I don't think there's going to be any big fights here. I don't know.
No, I doubt it. Yeah, because even when I was looking at this, I'm like, a lot of these I could go either way, as long as Virtual Boy's at the best, as long as that's top tier.
So I have 5 tiers here: best, great, good, okay, bad. If you want to, that's just S, A, B, C, D. Sure.
Yeah.
But, makes sense.
Yeah, I think we should probably just go in chronological. Should we go in chronological order? We have the consoles arranged in chronological order, or should we just start calling things out that we know where they go?
Let's start chronologically, and if for some reason we need to freak out, we can. But I think we should start chronologically because we have NES ready to go. And,
let me say that I don't think we should feel wedded to any of our decisions. If we feel like we need to move things afterward. Once we introduce other consoles, we will.
That's what's so great. It's just drag and click, right? So,
it really is.
And move it anywhere we want to. We could put NES in bad right now just to see if people get worried. See, it's funny.
Yeah.
It's funny to put a picture of the NES next to the word bad.
That's comedy, people. That's what we're doing here.
I'll say this about the NES. It's obviously got to be high. I almost don't want to do best. I almost feel like great is good enough. It's so weird because I'm thinking about all sorts of different angles on these things, right? Like how important they were, how good the game libraries were, how good they still are. Everything matters, right? There's no single criteria here. And, NES is obviously fantastic, incredibly important system, but I still don't know if I would call it like one of the best systems ever when I look at the whole scope of things. I don't know. What about you?
I really love the NES, and I know we always say like, we can't be objective. Everything has to be subjective, but I'm going to try to have like a little bit of objectivity here, whatever that means. And I'm like going to try to think beyond like, I really like the NES. And so therefore it should be in best. It's like, if I pull out a little bit and it's like, if I were to like hand a list to aliens who are coming to the Earth, and they're like, "What are the best Nintendo consoles?" And that would give us the best the best impression of it. I would not put the NES in the best category for them. I would probably put it down in good because it was good. Like without a doubt, it was good. It resurrected gaming in the United States after it had like really fallen off. And there's a lot of like really good games, but it's like it still feels like proto gaming. Like it feels like the step before.
Here's the thing with the NES: pretty much every great game for it, as far as I'm concerned, at least for me, has a better version on the SNES.
Right.
Right. Like I think Link to the Past is much better than Zelda. I like Mario World even more than Mario 3. I know that one's a little spicy for some people. I know a lot of people like Mario 3 more, but Metroid, come on, Super Metroid compared to Metroid. Even give me a Final Fantasy VI, Super Contra, Castlevania is a little closer again. The one thing, my favorite game of all time is Mega Man 3, and Mega Man X is also just ridiculous, but I still would take Mega Man 3 over that. I would still put it in great, maybe just because of the significance and all that stuff, but I would keep it out of best.
Let's put it in great for now, and let's see, because I think I don't want to end up with like 6 things in great.
Right, and that could happen. So right. Yeah, I agree. Well, okay. Game Boy, I don't think is as high as great.
I think it's good as well.
Yeah, I think it's good at least, or good at most. I mean, that's one that just had to age badly, right? Like it was just so early at being what it was. It's incredible that some of it does still hold up really well. Link's Awakening is obviously still fantastic. The original Pokemon games were really important, but even those, Link's Awakening didn't need a remake the way Pokemon Red and Blue maybe did to still be relevant. But aside from those, there's a lot of things here that it's like, oh wow, there's a portable Mario game. That's neat. That's cool. And now it's just the portable Mario game is Mario Odyssey. That is the Mario game, right?
Right, for sure. And they did a lot of interesting things on the Game Boy. The Game Boy lasted so long that it also had like its own eras within like just the Game Boy lifeline. And we're going to consider Game Boy Color a separate system, but it's like right on the borderline where it can almost be considered here, but we are going to consider it separately. But still, even if you don't count Game Boy Color, Game Boy, just, you think of the early days with Tetris, and then like almost a decade later, maybe a full decade later, you get the Pokemon games coming out for it.
It is insane. Yeah, the launch, considering how weak the system was, right? It had no color, it had no backlight, and like other portable systems, like during its lifespan, like Game Gear, like the Lynx did, right? But nobody cared because this thing was still just kind of simpler design, better design, had better games. It still outlasted all this. And part of it was just it was Nintendo, right? And they had themselves, and they were obviously just going to have all the third-party support back then,
right? And it was a ton, just thousands of games, I think, on the Game Boy. And the Nintendo games, like the first party Nintendo games, it's not exactly like an NES situation where it's like, look, there were definitely better games later. Yeah, in a lot of cases there were, but like Zelda Link's Awakening is among the best Zelda games. Wario Land is like one of Nintendo's better platforming games.
The other big one is Donkey Kong 94, and that had a sequel on Nintendo DS. Game Boy Advance first, and then the DS with Mario versus Donkey Kong. But even those weren't nearly as good as original Mario or Donkey Kong 94.
Right, and I think that's why it's not going to slip below good here. I think it's going to stay firmly in good because there's a lot of really interesting games that even when they tried to follow up them and like recapture the magic, they didn't always. And it's like with like the NES, like you were saying, like you would get better games on the Super Nintendo, and that's just not exactly the line here. And also, the Game Boy lasted so long, like we were saying, it's hard to discount that. So I feel good with it and good for now.
Yeah, me too. Donkey Kong 94 alone makes sure it doesn't fall below good for me.
An all-time great game, absolutely. Just like, if there's bad things about it, like you mentioned it's like the tech was disappointing over time. The screen is like really impossible to look at now. If you try to go back and like play the actual hardware, I cannot do it. It hurts my head to look at that system now. So, that's why it's not going to get up into great. And I think the NES eventually is probably going to get pushed down next to it. But for now, I'm happy leaving these.
I don't know. We'll see. Well, SNES, is that our first one in the top tier? Yeah. I mean, come on. It's the system with Super Metroid, Chrono Trigger, Super Mario World, Yoshi's Island, Link to the Past, Mega Man X, Super Castlevania. I mean, it's insane just how many all-time classics are on there that have not aged like really at all. They're still so much fun to play.
Yeah, and I was a Nintendo kid, but I have an affinity for the way like Genesis graphics look. But when you like are thinking of 16-bit nostalgia today, I think the thing that pops into mind is the look of like Super Nintendo games. The way Super Nintendo games look is what people try to capture. Like if you're making like, if you want to like a big RPG adventure, but like you're an indie studio and you want to like do it on the cheap, you make it kind of look like Final Fantasy VI.
Right.
That's what you do. And I think and people eat that stuff up because it's so iconic. Everything on that system has aged perfectly because it's the best of 2D graphics. It's like the pinnacle of that. And a bunch of developers were doing some of their best work ever at that time. And yeah, just the list of games you went through right there alone kind of put it above everything else. But
and this is the controller too that is basically kind of the template for all future controllers, especially with the face buttons, the shoulder buttons. Just pretty big stuff here. Yeah, it's hard to. I can't imagine putting it anywhere besides best. It's so good.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's it also had a pretty long life. It wasn't not as long as the Game Boy, but it just kept having hits. Like even like once the PlayStation started to come out in the Saturn, you were still getting stuff like Yoshi's Island and Donkey Kong Country.
You mean Yoshi's Island, Donkey Kong Country 3, Mario RPG were all late. Thanks for this. Chrono Trigger is pretty late too, and even Super Metroid is kind of a later game actually, but but even when it launched, right at launch or very early on, at least you had Mario World, you had Castlevania 4, you still had great stuff for it.
Yeah, Super Nintendo easily in the best category. It's just like there's like, what do you even say against it? Like
I don't know.
Yeah, you have
what,
to like.
What would be the negative here?
I mean, you just like
that Mortal Kombat didn't have blood,
right? Yeah, yeah.
Like, it didn't have arcade perfect ports, right? Like, wasn't an SNK home system? I guess,
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and it's like you have to invent other stuff. It's like, oh well, the online support wasn't invented yet. Really, you have to get an X-band thing. It's like that doesn't. I don't care about that at that time, right? Yeah. So.
And I had an X-band.
I always wanted an X-band, and I never.
You weren't missing much.
No,
the only thing I remember about my X-band was that it had a news service, and that's where I learned that Arnold Schwarzenegger was going to play Mr. Freeze. And
oh my god! And this was what a weird nugget that is. Oh my god!
And then it didn't happen for so long. I was like, well, that was just some weird lie by X-band. And then when it finally did happen, I was like, oh my god, X-band was right.
Oh man, you ever see that show Early Edition where the guy gets a newspaper the day before it happens?
Yeah. My god.
Maybe your X-band was that. Maybe that's what you had.
Yeah, I only saw one episode of that. The newspaper was like, there's a no-hitter, so he wanted to go to the baseball game. And I was like, that is what I would do.
It's Kyle Chandler show. Everyone should check it out. It's like a bad Quantum Leap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Super Nintendo in the best, we got NES in the great, and Game Boy in the good. So
look how evenly dispersed this is, and I think it's going to continue because we have the Virtual Boy, and I feel like the bad tier here is basically for the Virtual Boy, right? I mean,
that's
it
why
has
it
like
exists.
11 games, and I'll even defend Virtual Boy a bit as being interesting and kind of fun to own, but I mean, it's not good,
right? And it's like at least it failed in an interesting way. And if you are a person who is like, man, I want to like dip my toes into collecting. The idea of like getting a full set of Virtual Boy games is like still pretty realistic. It's like more expensive now than it has been in the past, but it's realistic where like you could get all of the games ever released for a Virtual Boy relatively easily. And it's fun. And it's like you completed the set, you could like move on with your life. But that doesn't make it good. It's
a literal failed system.
Yes.
It had one really good game with Wario Land. That's just because it's a Wario Land game, right? So yeah, so sure. I defend Mario Clash probably more than it deserves, but
I like the tennis game. I mean, it had a look.
It was fine.
It had a vibe. It's like it is what like video games would have been in the Star Wars universe a little bit, like the way stuff.
You're exactly right. And yeah, there was like Punch Out, but with robots.
Right.
There's some
Tello robots
there. But it's not virtual reality, even. No, really. It's just 3D.
It's 3D.
It's just 3D with blinders.
Yeah, it's monochrome. It's like people like I guess there's a chance people don't know. It only had one color, red. And this is like we're coming off the Super Nintendo, so I remember just being out of my mind excited for this thing. It's like we are getting the Virtual Boy, we're getting the Ultra 64. Nintendo gonna dominate. I remember like magazines talking about like Nintendo's just going to be unstoppable, and then you get this thing and you try it and you have to hunch over on the table.
That was so awkward.
It was uncomfortable. The controller had like a dual D-pad situation. It was weird to hold.
It was weird. It was a bizarre system. It's just so weird in general with those mid 90s, how all that incredible goodwill the industry had gotten from Genesis and Super Nintendo was like quickly followed up by Virtual Boy, 32, like all these weird things that I think just started making consumers really suspicious.
Yeah,
and I think that's why it made room for a Sony to come in and kind of clean things up a bit.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. There was a lot of lessons learned that Sony didn't have to learn, and they could come in and you're right, and just sort of do the thing that people wanted. Just make a better Super Nintendo over and over and over again, and that has served Sony well.
Virtual Boy is basically the start of Nintendo's kind of fall for a while.
Right. Followed, so like I was saying, followed up by what was once called the Ultra 64, the Nintendo 64. This is a hard one for me because this is one that I really love. I really love the Nintendo 64.
This is where we're going to maybe argue the most, because I'm a bit down on the Nintendo 64. I was never a huge fan. I love Super Mario 64. An Ocarina of Time is great. But I think part of this is just colored from me having a decent gaming PC pretty early on. I was spoiled that way. So like something like GoldenEye, I never enjoyed GoldenEye because I already had like Quake and stuff, or Half-Life even at that point. So I kind of stick my nose up at it a bit, I guess.
No, yeah, I mean I get that, but it's like like I didn't have a PC at that time, not one that could play games like Quake for sure. And I had a bunch of friends that would come over and play 4-player Nintendo 64 games for years. And that definitely included GoldenEye, but it also included stuff like, Mario Kart. And we Mario Party, we would find stuff to play because the 4-player mode in a lot of games was just so much fun.
It was certainly the best 4-player console ever, right?
Yes.
With Mario Part. I mean, maybe for me, I like the GameCube a bit more in that department, but this is the iconic one for that with Smash Brothers and Mario Kart, GoldenEye, and all that stuff. It's just, I guess, like personally, some of it didn't really resonate with me. Even the rare games outside of GoldenEye, it took me a lot longer to appreciate Banjo-Kazooie. And then stuff like Jet Force Gemini and Conker's Bad Fur Day, I still don't really care that much about.
I like Jet Force Gemini, but I'm not going to say that's like a game that other people should play. Like I like that game at the time. It's like hard to go back to, but I still like it just because I liked it a lot then. But stuff like not Body Harvest, but the game where you drive into building. What's that?
Oh, Crash Core. Right? No, that's not right. No, Blast Core.
Blast Core. Yes. Like stuff like there was just like weird cool games happening, and it brought the analog stick into the 3D, and it like predicted the need for that. Like Miyamoto was just like, no, we have to have an analog stick.
It predicted it. It still kind of like came at it at a pretty weird way. Like, I'm not like somebody who thinks the controller's off or anything. Like it certainly it makes sense always, but it's obviously not perfect. It obviously isn't the direction things went.
No, definitely not. But like the analog stick alone, like in a vacuum, the analog stick was what everyone else had to end up doing retroactively. Like PlayStation had
Rumble.
Rumble, yeah. I think there's just a lot of cool stuff happening on the system.
It is like the first one that's like the pure Nintendo machine, right? Like
so
anything worth playing on this thing. Maybe even more so than any other system until the Wii, anyways. Like this is. I hope you like Nintendo games.
Yeah,
because I do, so it works out. But I mean, like, there's not third party wise. There's pretty much nothing here.
They used cartridges, which was like the big fatal flaw here. People, third parties wanted the cheaper medium of CDs, so third parties all went to rush to PlayStation. And Sony gave them, I think, a better deal as well in terms of licensing fees. And Nintendo
even when they did try, like it was just like Castlevania 64 and stuff. They were disasters. Like people just couldn't make good games on Nintendo 64 a lot of the time.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's examples of that. There's like WWF No Mercy is like the best third party game on there, which is bizarre. It's good. I mean, it's a great game, but it's bizarre.
I like Castlevania 64, but it's very much like. Because I remember going to rent these games and like trying to find a third party game to like.
I was letting everything else slide. Now you're trying to defend the Castlevania 64.
I'll go back and play that game today and probably still have a pretty good time. It's fun. There's giant Frankensteins with chainsaws for hands and stuff. So that's a good video game.
Okay, look, I wanted to put it in okay, and I feel like you're not going to allow that.
No, it's got to be at least good. It's good.
Well, we can put it in good then.
Yeah, it's good. I think that's right because I know there's some people who will say the Nintendo 64 is better than the GameCube, and I won't go that far. So we don't have to have that knockdown drag out fight. So I'm happy if we could just get it in good. And Game Boy Color, huh?
I remember one of the first fights I ever got into with you is because you didn't think the Game Boy Color was like its own separate platform from the Game Boy. I understand that it's muddy compared to a lot of other systems, but it is a separate thing, and it had a short lifespan of only a couple years, but it had there are a lot of Game Boy Color games with their own unique packaging, and they only run on this hardware.
More so than like DSi or the new 3DS.
A thousand times more so. Like new DSi, it was only digital stuff anyways. And new 3DS was 2 or 3 games. I mean, at that point, it's like saying that Mario Paint is on its own platform because you have to have a mouse to play it. I don't know.
Yeah, so it definitely is more of its own platform than anything else. But it still is also in that lineage of upgrades because it is basically the same exact hardware as the Game Boy with like just enough of a juice upgrade to give it color.
It was a weird stopgap. You do wonder why they bothered at all, and the reason they bothered is because Pokemon became this giant hit, and right. So they needed something before. So we're obviously making the new big one, but they didn't want Pokemon 2 basically to come out on a Game Boy still. But this thing still did have like good games. You had Pokemon Gold and Silver, which are maybe some of the best there. I like the Zelda Oracle games quite a bit. Wario Land 3 was on here. Remember the Super Mario Brothers Deluxe, the first of the Mario remakes?
Yeah. I love that game too.
Yeah,
I love that version of it.
First Shantae was here.
I really liked my Game Boy Color. Looking back, it's like, man, that I basically had that thing for about a year, and then the Game Boy Advance came out. So it's weird to think like it was that fast, but I just remember every time I would look at the Game Boy Color, I'd be like, I like the way this system looks. I like the how it tapers so that it can fit the batteries, and it's kind of like it's badonkadunk, but
it certainly was a more sexy Game Boy.
Yeah.
It was weird though. Like this thing came out in like 98 or something, and it still only had 2 face buttons, right?
Right. I mean, it's still just a Game Boy. Yeah, but there were a lot of cool games, and I do think, I think it goes into okay.
I think it punched above its weight considering what it actually was.
Yes,
right?
I agree. Yes, totally. It just if it had a longer life, I think there'd be a better argument for it to go higher. Hang on. Yeah, you want me to open the Mr. Potato Head? Yeah, sure. I'm gonna go open a Mr. Potato Head. I'll be right back. Mike's gonna talk about the Game Boy Advance for a second.
I don't got to talk about nothing. This is a video. You can edit. I did nothing. This is a video. You can edit.
Oh man, I knew you were gonna do that. Yeah, it's fine. No, I need to edit it anyhow because we didn't start right away, and I'll have to do something at the beginning with music or something.
That's right, you will.
Okay, so Potato Head is done. Game Boy Advance. This one
is tough, just in terms of how high does it go.
Right, because it's definitely in the. I think it's either best or great for me.
Yeah, I agree. It's either. I like keeping it out of best more so than maybe anything else is just that original incarnation of it with the kind of not great form factor and the no backlighting, right?
Yeah. Now I will say that the form factor actually, if you go back today and try to play a game, maybe you're different, but I think a lot of people have this sense now that if you go back and you want to play a Game Boy Advance, it's almost better to mod the original Game Boy Advance and put a backlight into it because Game Boy Advance SP is kind of too cramped for your hands. But I love the Game Boy Advance SP. Man, I was so excited about that. I love that thing so much. And I even like the Game Boy Advance, like the original game. When I got it, I don't remember having that many complaints. It's like, I knew I wish I had a backlight for sure. But I played Castlevania Circle of the Moon on that thing and loved it. And I remember people complaining about not being able to see and it's really dark. And I remember being like, no, this is just awesome. I am loving this.
I mean, I noticed, and I would sometimes be like, I'm going to play my Game Boy Advance in the bathroom because that's where I can see the best. So there was a little bit of that, but the games were so good. Even like super early on, the games were so good. Circle of the Moon, the Mario 2 remake, Mario Kart, F-Zero. And then eventually, like it just, you had so many more good Castlevania games. You had Harmony of Dissonance. You had Aria of Sorrow. I'm like in a big, I want to play Aria of Sorrow right now because it's been forever, and I'm like craving that. One of my favorite Zelda games is actually Minish Cap. I love the Minish Cap. I'm all about that.
Yeah, I could never get into Minish Cap, but I could tell it was good. I just was always so wanting more Link's Awakening that even like the Oracle games weren't enough for me. I'm like, man, I just wish it was more.
Those are also good.
I know they're good. It was never like that. It was just like I wish I could get into these more. And the times I've gone back to play Minish Cap now, it's like, oh, I could get into this now. I could totally like play through this now and really enjoy it. I just never saw it through. But yeah, no, I recognize those are good games. I always want to go back and play Castlevania, Aria of Sorrow, and all those games. I love them so much. The Metroid games that came out on Game Boy Advance.
Metroid Fusion, man. Oh boy.
Zero Mission. Yeah.
We have your Advance Wars. We had Fire Emblem on here. WarioWare.
Yep. WarioWare, just like an all-time classic. And like, again, like a lot of interesting stuff happening on this stuff. Like they would mess around with like motion controls. Like they would put out games that had gyroscopes built into the cartridge and stuff. like Topsy Turvy, Yoshi Topsy Turvy, I think was one of them. There was just a lot of cool stuff happening on the Game Boy Advance. Even connecting it to the GameCube and using it to like play some stuff like Pac-Man Versus, I think the game was. I get that, like, that was a very rare circumstance for the people that could make that happen, but I did that once and it was awesome. But like, really, just it has an all-time great game library. There are just so many good games.
The other thing is, this is another system where we have 2 face buttons, and we do have 2 shoulder buttons this time.
Right.
But there was a lot of mapping things to those shoulder buttons that probably shouldn't have been shoulder buttons, and that would be sometimes a little awkward. I don't think the library is quite as good as an SNES library. I will say that.
Maybe not.
Outside of Konami, the third-party support isn't quite that good, right? Although, gosh, thinking Capcom, you also have the Mega Man Zero games on here, which I do like quite a bit, especially 0-3. So I don't know. There's there's a part of me that's like, maybe we should put it in great for now. I don't know if I feel like you want to put it in best. I don't know if I'm ready to put it in best.
I do, but it could go in either one of these. For me, it's like right up there, right next to the Super Nintendo, easily. I think if we move, it just isn't on the same tier as the NES. It is above the NES. That's for sure.
I don't know. I think it's on the NES tier. I don't know. So
it's like, but it's there's so many of the games that came out for the Game Boy Advance. It's like, what if we kept going down that route where it's like we never got 3D graphics and it was just a better Super Nintendo?
Well, the timing of that was great, right? Because right before that it was almost obnoxious how quickly everybody abandoned 2D games.
Right.
Like unnecessarily, even though we knew that they could still be good. Every once in a while, you would get like a Klonoa or something, right, or a Symphony of the Night, and be like, we can still make these, right? And Game Boy Advance finally just gave developers not just an excuse, but almost kind of forced them to you have to make some good 2D games again. And it turns out that they can be really fun still. And today now, even though we don't have dedicated handheld systems anymore, really, there's half the games anymore are 2D again.
Yep, and this system enabled that to really flourish, and it a lot of the games I loved on Super Nintendo also now have better versions on Game Boy Advance.
All right, Jeff, we can put it in best for now. If best starts looking crowded, we might have to move it. I don't know.
I think for me, there's
I might be making an argument.
Okay. Okay. Yes, but
I love my GameCube. I love the GameCube.
Yeah.
I have no issues with the GameCube. I don't know. I don't know what a single fault of that thing would be for me, except maybe that you couldn't click in the analog sticks, which isn't much. I think that it has one of my favorite game libraries. It actually, people forget, the third-party support is actually pretty good on this thing.
Pretty good, yes.
It's the last time that you really had parity between a Nintendo system and its competitors, right? Out of the 3, it looked better than PlayStation 2. Only slightly worse than Xbox, really, and most of the time you couldn't even tell.
Yeah, I remember Prince of Persia. I remember looking at the comparisons in the Xbox version. It's you could see all the fingers, and the GameCube version, it's you can almost see all the fingers, and then the PlayStation 2 model was just you can't see fingers. So it's okay, that's the difference between these systems. And it was I liked playing a ton of third-party games on the GameCube. It didn't quite have all of them, but it had almost all of them, and it often had third-party exclusives that were the best. I think Star Wars, Rogue Squadron.
Yeah, it had Rogue Squadron. Had some, had the best version of Sonic Adventure 2, which but you had Monkey Ball. You had Beautiful Joe. Resident Evil 4 was a GameCube exclusive at first, right? That has to count for something. But even some games were Soul Calibur 2 may as well have been a GameCube exclusive as far as I'm concerned, and that was the best 3D fighting game of that generation. I think, but the Nintendo stuff here it's almost like SNES in terms of how iconic so many of these Nintendo games are, with Wind Waker, Metroid Prime, Super Smash Brothers, Melee, and a lot of those, those Nintendo 64 4-player games you're talking about. I'd rather play Mario Party 4.
Sure, yeah.
I'd rather play Melee than say the only one that doesn't have maybe a great thing is 007, although I like Agent Under Fire more than I like GoldenEye, which I'm almost afraid to say.
I love the GameCube. It is great. I think it is I think there was a lot of really smart choices from Nintendo in terms of like what they were going to make their games look like at that time. Because the games look timeless now. It's like timeless 3D, which is the first time we had that. Before the Nintendo 64 and PlayStation really struggled with a lot of that stuff. Hang on, I got my kid yelling at me again. She wants bouncy balls.
Sounds like a teaching moment. What were they thinking when they invented this bouncy ball?
They were thinking
6 hours later.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm afraid to admit that thread taught me something. I didn't know that you could use a can opener to, like, if you used it the right way, it lifts up the lid with it. I've been using a can opener wrong my entire life. You
read way more of that thread than I did.
Yeah, I really read like 5 posts and that was it. And then I was like, man, this is really boring.
Anyways, you were just about to put GameCube in best, and we were gonna move on.
I don't think you're wrong. I think I really do love the GameCube. It's I think I'm baffled that people don't like it as much as I do sometimes, but a lot of people do. But what's the one thing? Sunshine's great. Sunshine's very good.
Sunshine's I know. I know. Okay, look. Sunshine's no Mario 64. It's no Mario Galaxy. I agree.
No Mario 64. There's no Mario Galaxy.
Especially after playing all 3 of them back to back recently. Like, I almost did kind of like, and I was always a Mario Sunshine defender, and I'm still not saying Mario Sunshine is bad, but I am like kind of like, oh yeah, it is the worst one of the 3D games. I agree now pretty swiftly there. I get it a bit more. I'm not going to hear anything about it being bad.
Right, and I'm not saying that, but it doesn't have a Mario 64 or a Mario Galaxy. It does feel like it
has a Luigi's Mansion. Okay. You have you're making up with it with some weird stuff like Pikmin and Luigi's Mansion.
That's a good point.
And again, there's no Metroid game for Nintendo 64. And
Metroid Prime now. Never mind, you're right. God, Metroid Prime might be the best game ever friggin' made. Man, the Metroid. Okay, yeah, totally. Let's go in best. Yeah. Metroid Prime is so good, Mike. It is so good. I was
just watching the speed run, and I'm like, this game still looks so good because like
timeless.
It's almost that Star Wars thing you're saying, right? Because it's kind of a dirty sci-fi game anyway. So the fact that everything's kind of grainy or whatever, or what not pixelated, but you know what I mean. It works out for it. It works out to Metroid Prime's benefit. It looks character model for Samus is still so detailed and nice looking and
Yeah, they like used every polygon that they in the right exact way, and they're like, this is the model that could last for her forever because we just don't need any more polygons. We just knew we used them so wisely. It's great.
Yeah.
What's up, kiddo? You need me to help open the Mr. Potato Head again? All right, hang on. A lot of editing. How do you like my Captain America chair? Nope. Push to talk.
Was that a Christmas thing?
No, it was a company sent it to me for review, so I have to do a review on it here pretty soon.
I got a secret lab chair. She's back. Is she yelling at you again?
Yeah, totally. What's up? You want Robot Trans, so I put on the wrong show. Okay, that's
you idiot.
Yeah, I messed it up. I put on Love Monster, and she wants Robot Trans.
Wow, get out of here.
GameCube is in the best, yeah. And really, yeah, after you play Metroid Prime, Resident Evil 4, Pikmin, there's just too many all-time greats.
First Melee, all-time favorite.
Melee, yes.
All-time favorite. Yeah, it's third-party games are good. I really don't understand. I remember I tweeted that one time. I don't understand how the GameCube sold so poorly. And like, I had enough people be like, "Oh, the GameCube was bad," and it was the most mad Twitter had ever made me. I think my week was ruined.
I think a lot of people just had bad tastes when they were kids, when they were younger.
That was the peak of the whole Nintendo's kiddie thing, which came around. Like everyone grew out of that real quick, thank God. But this was when that was actually hurting Nintendo. The fact that everybody thought that.
Yep, and Nintendo hadn't quite figured out how to like leverage it and to their benefit at that point. Animal Crossing was the start of that though, and that started then too. So again, another great GameCube game, at least here in the United States. Excuse me. All right, so here's a tough one for me. DS. It is. There's a lot of great DS games.
You know what's weird about the DS though? I love a lot of the games on the DS. But compared to a lot of other Nintendo systems, a lot of them are third-party, like, weird things here. Like, I don't really care about any of the Mario games for the DS. I don't care about any of the Zelda games for the DS. But like Phoenix Wright, The World Ends With You, Ghost Detective. But my favorite Nintendo game on the system is Elite Beat Agents, which just barely feels like a Nintendo game. And but I love those games.
Elite Beat Agents is fantastic. Yeah, but you're right. That is the kind of game we were getting from Nintendo at the time. They were like doing the whole, I can't remember what they called it, but they were like doing the Blue Ocean thing, and they were trying to reach out to a different audience. And it really worked, and yet I didn't necessarily feel too left behind. I also didn't care much about the for the Zelda games at the time, and that was disappointing. But there was so much cool stuff happening, and the DS Lite, like with the Gameboy Advance Sp, really made that system go from ugly to like relatively attractive and nice to have in your pocket and stuff. I like really liked Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars, like that kind of stuff was happening at that time. It's like, man, this is kind of just a cool system.
We were still getting good Castlevania games. I liked Dawn of Sorrow actually a lot. I don't think that's the one of the three people talk about the most, but I liked Dawn of Sorrow.
I liked them all. I liked them all. So it was like, I felt so spoiled. Like they were coming out once a year at that point, and it was just like, man, I love this game. I'm playing. I can't wait for the next one. And like a month later, the next one would come out. It's like, oh god, this is all so good. It was a golden age for Metroidvania, of like Metroidvanias from like the big publishers. I guess we're still in a golden age of Metroidvanias, really, when you think about it. But
we had the last good Mario RPG with Bowser's Inside Story.
Yes, yeah, man, that was another Mario and Luigi on Game Boy Advance. Another reason for that to be in best. But
Nintendo was sometimes obnoxious with their touchscreen things, but Kirby Canvas Curse was great. I like that one a lot.
Yes, that was truly a great platformer played with a touchscreen. I don't know. This one's tough for me because I don't. It's
not best.
It's not best. I agree, but I feel like good is too low, so it kind of feels like it goes to great for me. But I think maybe great.
I think great makes sense. Because I love that thing. I had that thing with me everywhere. Same. Like it was always in my pocket. Yeah. Especially once it was the light and then the DSi. Yeah, pretty easy.
Yeah, I'm like looking at best DS games. I'm terrible. Oh, like
yeah, me too.
Advance Wars Dual Strike is also like the Advance Wars games kept being great on the system.
Remember, Tetris DS was the best Tetris game in a long time.
Yes, it was.
At that point, Rhythm Heaven.
Yeah, Meteos. Yeah, that was a good game. There was like
I love Meteos. Yeah. And Hotel Dusk, and the Professor Layton games, all this weird stuff.
Yeah, and like even like Brain Age was really good.
Yeah, that's right. Brain Age was like I actually played a DS game not too long ago because I played the Dragon Quest V port that was on there.
Now Super Mario 64 DS, when you had to have the thumb strap with the thing on there, that was really bad.
I wish they'd almost just like ported that to 3DS because all it really needed was the analog stick because like the extra content was cool.
Yes.
You could play as the other characters.
Yeah.
I remember they made a Contra 4 for the DS and it was good.
Yeah. There was like a lot of good third party stuff happening on the DS. Nintendogs was good. Yes.
It was good.
Metroid Prime Hunters, not great, but interesting.
No, not good. They tried.
Yeah.
Okay, that was very early on when they were very intent. Like, say they go with Mario 64, they're like, look, it can run 3D games, and of course, all the best games for it were 2D or weird things, or visual novels. There's a lot, like Hotel Dusk and Phoenix Wright, basically visual novels, and they're fantastic.
I will say that this was the Nintendo portable, Nintendo handheld that finally had 4 face buttons, which meant you could play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and Tony Hawk's American Skateland. An actual great Tony Hawk game.
They were way better than they had any right to be.
Absolutely. I still love going back and playing Tony Hawk's American Skateland for the DS. Whenever I find my DS laying around now, my kids use it. I play Tony Hawk's American Skateland.
Henry Top Hat?
Oh yeah, Henry Hatsworth.
The crazy mix of like Bejeweled and Mega Man X that I never knew I needed.
Yes, and it's like such a good concept. It was really hard. My wife beat that game without knowing you could ever like level up the character and get other stuff.
Oh no!
She was swearing at the game. She like was so frustrated, but she couldn't stop playing. And eventually beat it. And then I'm like looking at her save. I'm like, you never upgraded your character, and she got even madder. Clubhouse Games was also fantastic. That's like the kind of stuff where it's like they're doing this wide appealing stuff to the point where it's just a collection of games like checkers, but it was a really well done collection. I really love that too. And the Picross games, on DS were very good.
But yeah, that's certainly enough to put it in great, I think. But
I think so too.
This next one is weird because it's like the biggest hit ever, it felt like. But do I like it? And that's
it bounces up and down in my estimation. Like, I liked it at the time a lot. Since then, I didn't like that thing. I didn't like the Wii. The Wii's bad. And now I'm like,
I don't want to go back to it very often. The last time I went back to it was because I really wanted to play Metroid Prime 1, and the Metroid Prime trilogy was great. Like, those games actually were more fun with the pointing and shooting thing. Really, that was it. It's that and Mario Galaxy, right? Mario Galaxy and Mario Galaxy 2 are like two of the best Nintendo games ever. So those help out a lot.
I do think that there is going to be, like, for me, there's going to be another like re-estimation of the system because I've installed Dolphin on my game computer, connected to my TV. You could connect Wii remotes to your PC over Bluetooth. It's very simple. It just works with Dolphin. It's great. I got a wireless sensor bar, and I'm like, there are some games I want to see. Like, I think my kids could probably play these games before they play a lot of other stuff, like Boom Blocks and things like that. And I think there's, and like even like Wii Sports, like I think they could have a lot of.
I mean, Wii Sports is, I don't want to underestimate Wii Sports. Like, that actually was great, right? Everybody, like, it was, like that's why the system was so successful, because everybody was actually playing with like people who wouldn't play games before. You literally had grandma playing Wii Golf, and it was fun. And we, everyone would get around and laugh and have a good time and forget about the fact that some of their relatives were racist or anti-Semitic or something, and we were all happy for a moment.
Yep, for a moment, yeah. And but it is like it is an incomplete idea. It is Nintendo saying we could reach out and get all of these other people to play games, and it's well, you can get them all to show up and buy the system and buy a game, maybe one game.
They'll buy that game and they'll buy Wii Fit.
Right, and they'll buy maybe the Carnival games or whatever it was.
Carnival games. That is the weirdest hit console game series ever.
Of all time, it might be the weirdest one. Yeah.
Right? Because there's nothing. It had no life outside of the Wii.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was it. That's Carnival, because people were like, well, this is another thing, kind of like silly, like simple sports games that all you need to do is waggle. Because that was the thing, right? We were promised like full motion, all that crazy stuff you do, and it was really pointing and waggle. And then when you had the Wii Mode Plus, like, that actually was a lot better, and it was pretty cool, and it was kind of too little, too late.
It was like it was trying to answer some of the concerns that I think people that were like very into games had, like, oh yeah, this is just waggle. It's and like people that were buying the system because they were playing with their family, or they were the grandma and they wanted to have a system for when the kids came over. They didn't care that the when they swung the thing, it wasn't 1-to-1 accuracy.
Yeah.
And I think so when I say it's like an incomplete idea, it is an idea that Nintendo eventually found the right path for with the Switch, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But it's like a system that can appeal to a huge audience, but then that audience is also going to just buy a ton of games for it. That was not the Wii, and I think I still think, even like I know I liked the Wii at the time, and I know that I don't dislike it now. I still think it probably does go in okay. It's not.
There's just so many okay Nintendo games for it, even like forgettable things, like who remembers Wario Land Shake It,
right?
Super Paper Mario, Kirby Epic Yarn, like all the stuff it was fine.
Yeah, and like the Super Mario Galaxy games are among some of the best games ever made.
Yeah, I like Skyward Sword probably more than most people. I do like that one, but that was very late, and that was a Wii Motion Plus game or whatever. It really needed that, and it still was the epitome of like over-explaining Nintendo, right? Which they had to kind of get away from a bit. And you had stuff like Red Steel. Third parties desperately wanted to make games for this thing, and they just never figured it out because they were trying to they wanted to port their 360 games, and that didn't really work. No. So they had to like make two versions of each game, and then like they wouldn't sell well anyway. So then eventually they just got frustrated and gave up, and were like, "What the hell, Carnival games?"
Right, and like the other thing happening at this time is like the plastic instrument music rhythm game thing, and that was happening everywhere. That wasn't just happening on Wii, and it was like again, this thing like reaching out to this wide audience, and it's like, yeah, you could get that stuff on Wii, but I don't associate it with Wii. It was like everything was taking advantage of that stuff.
Wii music has to be one of the worst like Nintendo games ever.
Yeah,
right?
it's emblematic of why this is okay. It's like there's just so much stuff dragging it down that's like even Galaxy's not going to drag it up to good necessarily.
It was a non-HD system that came out right when we were all getting HD TVs,
right? And it was so it was inexpensive, which helped with Nintendo's strategy. But it's I think it's just going to leave a bad taste in your mouth, especially if you were someone who's like a Nintendo diehard, which I still kind of was at this point almost. And I'm like, I had the Nintendo 64, I had the GameCube.
I love the GameCube so much, and
right,
even though it was basically a GameCube, it went away from that, and I hated the aesthetic of this thing too, like the clear, the white, everything's white. The Mii's even got obnoxious after a while. The Mii's became ugly to me. I didn't want to see a Mii again. It was fun when you got home and you made your Mii.
Yeah.
We were all having fun for a while, but yeah.
Yeah, and like I had like a whole like a menagerie of Mii's, like all the Ghostbusters and all the presidents and stuff like that. But eventually you just stopped ever touching those things, and it's like it became this weird bad taste left in your mouth for sure. So yeah, that's okay. So we have 3 systems left, and I think these are probably going to also be a pretty widespread of where they're going to end up. Maybe not necessarily, but let's recap. So in best we have the Super Nintendo, Game Boy Advance, and GameCube. In great, there's the Nintendo Entertainment System and Nintendo DS. In good is Game Boy and Nintendo 64. Okay is Game Boy Color and Wii, and bad is Virtual Boy. So Nintendo 3DS is up next as we continue chronologically, and another tough one.
Very good. It's very good. I like it. It's a matter of how high does it go. This one is different from the DS in that I think by far most of the best games for this thing were actually Nintendo games.
Yes.
Right. You had the best Zelda game in like years with A Link Between Worlds. I can't believe.
Yes.
Can't believe how good that game was.
I've accidentally replayed that game twice now, where I'm just like, I'm just gonna boot this thing up, and I just couldn't stop playing.
I'm kind of hankering to do it.
It is such a good game, and it's you're right, and it's like emblematic of what Nintendo was doing here. They were like putting a lot of effort into their handheld. It was like what set them apart from Sony. Like Sony's handhelds were B teams working on the PSP and PlayStation Vita. And Nintendo's like, well, we're going to make sure that when we make a game for the 3DS, it's going to feel like a Nintendo game. And Link Between Worlds is emblematic of that. Super Mario 3D Land, very good. Not quite as good as 3D World, but still very good.
But it was good. Fire Emblem Awakening was a huge deal for me. Like that game was so good that Fire Emblem suddenly became like important, right?
It was suddenly so good it killed Advanced Wars, and I'm not even that mad at it. Like, I get it. But Fire Emblem Awakening, yes, just
like that series was almost dead, and then Fire Awakening was so good and popular. Like, oh no, and this is going to grow until it's actually a big deal. It's going to be our only game to matter on mobile.
Yeah. I like there was you were still getting stuff like the Layton games. You were still kind of getting some of the things that were like happening.
There's a few DS carryovers like that and thing. Aside from that, third party wise, there's a lot of the JRPG support was good. You had Bravely Default from Square Enix. You had Atlas doing a lot of things like the Icarus Odyssey games.
Xenoblade Chronicles, which I got, Nintendo game, but like, those things would show up here.
You're actually getting indies on here. You had Shovel Knight and stuff like that.
Pushmo was like a good indie. Pushmo and Crashmo, those games are very good.
This is also. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say Picross 3D. The best version of Picross. It's still so good. Another game I would love to go back to and just play at any time. It's incredible. And if you've never played a Picross game, go pick up your 3DS. Get Picross 3D. It's awesome.
This is when Kirby finally became good again. We had Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot, which are like probably my favorite Kirby games after like Superstar, maybe original Kirby's Adventure. Like those are fantastic.
Yeah, and Animal Crossing New Leaf was very, very fantastic.
Yeah, so that was like the best Animal Crossing for a while. Mario Kart 7 was really good, right? I mean, it's
Mario
been
Kart
totally
7,
kind of eclipsed by 8, but man, was
yes,
that good.
yeah. Eight, it was a significant improvement because 7 had a really bad problem with snaking, but still, like that was like high level strat. So otherwise, it was still a very good game.
Man, I want to play. So many people love Kid Icarus Uprising. I
I
didn't
know I
play
want
it
to give it
much.
another shot.
It would be such a weird. Yeah, I feel like I need to do that again at some point. I'm actually playing my 3DS right now because I'm playing a Dragon Quest 7 on it. So I'm playing my 3DS every night again. And it's and I'll tell you, like, we didn't even talk about it, right? But the 3D effect is cool. Like,
Yeah, I like it.
And there's some games where it doesn't matter. And I'm not saying I have it on all the time, but
I do.
I know you do. But for games like, especially Zelda, Link Between Worlds was always my favorite. It looked so good. It was so cool.
But like even the retro ports, especially from M2, which is a developer that did a lot of Sega ports, Outrun 3D is so good. It is one of the best way. It's the best way to play that game. It looks so good in 3D. The super scaler effects that Sega was working with in the arcade at that time looks so good with actual 3D effects. It's mind blowing. But like even like Streets of Rage 2, it's a great way to play that with the 3D effects. And me and my wife have done it a couple times where we have 2 3DSs and we're just playing through that whole game, like local connection, multiplayer. And it's really good, really fun. And the 3D effect really works there. So
yeah, this had my favorite of the virtual consoles. The NES ports of the Mega Man games they had on here were fantastic. Like this was the version of Mega Man 3, my favorite game that I actually played the most, because the version of it got rid of the slowdown issues and even fixed a couple of bugs. Like it ran, and it wasn't like supposed to be a special port. It was just the virtual console game. But that version of Mega Man 3 was so nice. But I had a ton of virtual console games on there, and it was just so nice just having them in my pocket. You could play through, Super Metroid or Castlevania 3 or anything. It was great.
Speaking of, I do think this ends up in great though. For me, the rare drawbacks are like the library is very good. It's and like Link Between Worlds might be an example where it's like this is arguably one of the best games ever made. There's not very many of those games necessarily for me though. Like,
no, it's not. It's not like GameCube or Super Nintendo or Game Boy Advance with these ridiculous libraries.
Yes,
it's not. You're right.
Like there are a lot of solid games. Metroid: Samus Returns, a solid game.
Yes,
but it's
very
not
solid.
But it's like it's not up there even with like a Metroid like Zero Mission or all the Castlevania games we're getting on Game Boy Advance or even the DS. So to me, it falls like very strongly in the great category.
Yeah, I also think this is where Pokemon was starting to kind of become stale, which hurts things. But on the plus side, the Street Pass stuff actually was great. I remember how much more fun that made that E3 when we all had our 3DSs. Like, oh, this is actually pretty cool.
Yes, that was, and I think I like at one E3, it wasn't like the Gold Pants version, or maybe it was, but like I actually Street Passed with Reggie, which was very cool. Yeah. It was a very cool system, very fun. It was a great handheld, and that's I think it deserves to be where it's at, without a doubt. The Wii U.
Wow, is it bad or is it merely okay?
Yeah, so
it can't be better than that.
I agree.
Fundamentally, such a bad idea.
Yeah, it was. It's like. You're coming off the Wii. I get wanting to keep the branding to a certain extent, but you had to have a clean break if it's going to be a clean break. Like people have to buy new hardware to play these games. You are speaking to an audience, many of whom bought the Wii and bought it as like their very casual gaming machine. You think that this is going to bring them along by calling something else the Wii. And it just confused them. It's just confused
even
them.
Outside of that, just a tablet that had to be like it could only be so far away from like the actual console, right? Like it was defeating the point of a tablet even. And by so far away, I mean like that room.
That room. It
wasn't like it somewhere in the house.
Right. And it's like I was very frustrated with the Wii U because it was like so close to what I wanted. Like I don't like taking over the TV with my games. I will sometimes, but most of the time, 90% of the time, I'm not gonna like make the people in the room watch a game with me. I got kids now. I'm definitely not gonna like stop them from watching their show just so I could play a game. And the Wii U was like, no, you're still gonna get the console experience, and you're gonna get it on a screen that looks pretty good. And you go ahead and just play it on the couch. And I'm like, okay, great. Now I want to go play it in my bedroom. Oh, no, you can't do that. Don't be crazy. That's like 15 feet away. That's way too far. And anytime I would get like outside of that small bubble of support for the wireless signal, and the signal would start to degrade, or it would seem like it was about to work, and then it would just get a little bit hitchy, and it was like, oh, this is unplayable. It was so frustrating. It really primed me to really want the Switch, but it was just like, this thing is almost fitting into the way I want to play games, but not quite enough, and it just ends up being like this tease and this half-baked idea. It was just really half-baked across the board. And no third-party support, right? Like
awful third-party support again. I mean, the only thing helping here is that Nintendo made some really good games for it. Yep. It had Super Mario 3D World. You had they were just ports, but really good ports of some Zelda games. You had Splatoon, Super Mario Maker.
Yes,
it's fantastic. So there was some stuff there, and Miiverse was weird and good in almost like a way that felt accidental. I don't know what they thought they were doing, but it ended up being good. But I mean, it's not enough, huh?
No,
it's not enough to be good. Is it enough to not be bad? I mean, do you put it next to Virtual Boy? But because these are the two systems that just straight up failed, right? They didn't have full life cycles. I don't know if it's Virtual Boy bad.
It's not. I think it's okay. It's not exactly the same situation as Game Boy Color, which just had it was just too short-lived to be anything other than okay, or the Wii, which was just too broad, and Nintendo couldn't really build its voice in terms of speaking to the kind of gamers that we are. It was like this false start this half-baked idea with all these some pretty good games, but even then not enough, and then no third-party support, so it just felt like a disappointment. But it wasn't bad, and that's because when you were playing games on it and you were like meeting it halfway, it was still a pretty decent experience. And like Mario Kart 8 was really great when it came out.
But all these games, any game that has really been worth playing on it's just been brought to the Switch, because why not?
Right. Yes.
Which hurts it in terms of do you ever need a Wii U in your house anymore?
No, I mean, no, because they're shutting down the Super Mario Maker stuff. So it's like, even if you wanted to have the tablet experience for making levels, there's no point anymore because they're going to shut that stuff down. So it's worse than Game Boy Color and Wii, but better than Virtual Boy. So it's between there somewhere. So it is just a matter of, where do we lump it in with? Are we generous to it, or are we mean to it? Yeah, I know.
We mean to it. Part of me wants to kick the Wii U down there.
Yeah, maybe I could be convinced by that. I think what's the point in being generous to it? It's just a piece of plastic. And it was a failure, and it's I don't like even thinking about the Wii U. It had a bunch of great games, but they weren't great necessarily because of the Wii U, other than Mario Maker, and I still like Mario Maker on Switch. Yeah.
I think I'd rather have a Virtual Boy in this room right now than a Wii U.
Yeah, I could see that.
At least Virtual Boy is so weird that there's something to it. Like, you can't play Virtual Boy games somewhere else.
I will say I do have the Wii U hooked up on that TV over there, because the tablet is durable enough that I could just leave it out, and if the kids get a hold of it and they try to play a game,
it's a decoy.
Yeah, exactly. It's the really effective one, because it's this giant plastic kid's toy with a big screen on it, and
that Super tablet felt so cheap and light too. Ugh. The kids are yelling at you, telling you to throw the Wii U away.
No, she says she wants to play games. You want to play the Wii U?
No, Daddy, no.
You better be careful. I'll make you play the Wii U.
This is a learning experience.
All right, I'll be done in a second. We'll go play some games. All right, kiddo, sounds good. You're welcome, Emmy. All right, so let's put the Wii U in bed.
Yeah, it's bad. All right, now this one,
I feel better.
Look how even this is. Man, this is nice.
Yeah.
And now it's awkward because we have the Switch. It's not done. even though it's about to be as old as the Wii U was when it died, right?
Right. It's like, yeah,
it's almost 4 years old.
yeah, it's getting there fast. It doesn't feel that old. It still feels like this is the thing that just came out, which I guess.
And yet it feels like it has a legacy already, right? And it has a big library already.
Well, yeah, it feels like it is like, because it's like a statement. Like the Nintendo like had a thesis here, and it's very concise, and like how you're gonna fit this into your life as someone who plays games, and that doesn't just apply to you and me who like think about games a lot. It applies to just about anyone who's going to go out and like, if I want a way to play games and I want to like have access to a pretty decent library, like yeah, there's reasons to consider PlayStation. There's even reasons to consider Xbox with Game Pass. But the Switch is going to work so well for so many people that it's kind of like the easy recommendation for me. Like, just go get a Switch because you'll get the Nintendo games. You can connect it to a TV if you want, but if your TV's busy, you'll have this way to continue to play it as a handheld. All of the great indie games are coming here. Oftentimes the great indie games are coming here first, like Hades as NPC. But in terms of a console, it's coming to Switch first because they sell better on Switch. Because the people that play games on Switch like to play video games, and they buy a lot of video games, and that it benefits everyone. Because that means everyone's putting their games out on this thing. They're trying to figure out how to put Witcher 3 out on this stuff because it's worth it.
And it works somehow.
Yes, because it's worth it. It's worth the effort to make sure that it actually runs well, because they will sell. Yeah, like I said, like I was saying earlier with the Wii, like the Wii like had this idea, like this blue ocean idea, but it turned out the actual pathway to this was just make a really good video gaming system that is it's understated. It looks like it just has all the stuff it needs, nothing more. It has a screen and you can play it anywhere, and it works, and it feels just as good when you're playing it portable as you do as it does on the TV. And then let all the software take care of everything else. And that's what we want, and it works perfectly that way.
And we already have so many like all-time great Nintendo games, or just games in general here, with Breath of the Wild, yes, Mario Odyssey, the best Smash Brothers in a while, the best Mario Kart ever, if not, just in a while.
Yep.
Amazing Fire Emblem, Luigi's Mansion 3, way better than I thought it was going to be. So good that Nintendo bought that company.
Yeah, today. Totally. Yeah, today, yeah.
Yeah, gosh, even Splatoon 2's incredible. There aren't very many misses on it, and you have all these, plussed up ports of the Wii U games that were good anyways. The third-party support is good. Like, yes, there's sometimes some frustration with, this is weaker hardware, so some things aren't, working quite as well. So it'll be 30 frames per second or less smooth. It won't be as clear, but more often than not, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, and we did get all of the Wii U games, and like they're working on getting the last few ported over. So it's like all the great games that were there are now here, and that's really filled out the library. There's the live service games that were everywhere else. They're also on Switch. You could play Rocket League on Switch, and you could play Fortnite on Switch.
Overwatch. You can play Overwatch on Switch.
Yeah, exactly. You play Overwatch on Switch, and it's and they run fine. Again, they're not. They don't perform definitely don't perform as well as on the other consoles, but it's a really good enough experience, especially when you are playing in handheld. You're like, man, I could just play Rocket League in bed whenever I want. That's pretty great, and it feels fine.
You brought it up, but we're at a point now where so many of the best games are these indie games anymore. It's like, this is where I want to play them. This is where I want to play Hades or Celeste or Hollow Knight, and they're all just so freaking fantastic and fun. And it's not quite an indie game, but we even have the Ori games on here, and they run amazing somehow, and they're just absolutely fantastic there.
Yeah, I mean, Sonic Mania probably is partially such a huge success for Sega because of Switch. Like, I think that people feel like they could take more chances on games, so that's why they end up buying more games, because you're like, you're going to have time. You'll be able to find more time to play games because of the portable nature of it. Yeah, I mean, Fire Emblem Three Houses continuing to make great games from Intelligent Systems. Even the Mortal Kombat games coming out on Switch. It's there's just so much here. I never feel like I am getting to the end of the library. It's never my Switch is never just sitting there. There's always something else I could be looking at next.
I'm always playing it. Right now is the first time I've been playing in a while, just because I'm doing my whole weird Dragon Quest thing. But even then, like Dragon Quest 11 on my Switch was so much fun. God,
Right.
that was so good. Yeah, the RPGs have been fantastic. Even when I was just playing that remaster of Tales of Vesperia, I was having an amazing time. Like, yeah, there's so many good games on here.
And they've already announced Breath of the Wild 2, and I think I feel strongly that they will find a way to do Super Mario Odyssey 2. We don't know. They haven't said anything about it, but it feels like that's going to happen.
It's hard. It's like, why not? And the only reason why not is it's Nintendo, and who knows what they're going to do sometimes.
Right.
But you would certainly think so. Yeah, there's not that many games like from Nintendo. I'm not a fan of their Yoshi game and their Kirby game for the thing. I'm not mad about it though. Even ARMS, I thought was a worthy experiment.
Yeah, like it was definitely like it was a good game for what it was. It's just maybe doesn't jive necessarily with what we want.
Diablo 3 was
yes, it's a really good way to play Diablo 3. Marvel really Ultimate Alliance 3 is like okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, the negatives though, the online is still really stupid, and at this point they should at this point. Like, it was frustrating for Wii, right? At this point, it's like, okay, they take baby steps to improve it, and it's still ridiculous. And in some ways, still make it worse. Like, who uses that phone app? Anybody?
No, you shouldn't. It's really bad still. Yeah. Even if like you're like Among Us, I think it comes out on Switch again, and it's coming out before it hits the other console. Or no, I think it maybe hit the other consoles at the same time, but it was like announced for the Switch because they knew that was the big platform, and people just still use Discord on their phones to communicate when they're playing that game. So, I don't know. Yes, the online's bad, but it's like I play most of my online games on PC anyhow, and it's a negative, but it's just not enough.
I agree. I'm not playing. I would like to play Smash Brothers if the online was good, but it's not, so I just don't.
Right, and it's like I have a really good PC, and when I had a chance to buy Immortals, I got it on Switch because it's like I know Immortals would definitely look better on my PC, but it seems like it's going to look good enough on Switch and run good enough, and I'll be able Immortals Phoenix Rising.
Oh, right, yes.
Right,
yes,
but
yes.
It's just these games keep
Gods and Monsters.
Yeah, Gods and Monsters is what I meant to say.
I reviewed that game, and I still forget they changed the name.
I mean, it's a bad name. But it's like, that's the kind of stuff I am showing up to the Switch for, and that stuff seems kind of endless. There is always going to be another one of these kinds of games coming out from developers that really want to reach out to that audience. I think Hades is going to start like yet another sort of revolution of people wanting to put more indie games on the Switch, like as if that wasn't already a wildfire.
Yeah, right.
It's just going to continue to explode and grow because that game has sold so much on the Switch. It is such a huge success that they haven't had any need to rush out the Xbox or PlayStation versions. They are just continuing.
It is nuts, right? That game, as giant as it was, like they haven't even really bothered with PlayStation, Xbox.
They'll get there eventually, but they are making enough money.
The priority was getting that cross save feature working, right? That was the priority. Right. PC and Switch,
right? So that the people that were like, and I bet that's the people that were had bought early access on the the PC version. That's probably what they were asking for the most. It's like, well, can I get cross save so I can now continue to play this on my Switch? And it's like, so of course, that game is so emblematic of where this system is right now, where you could have this mega hit. And it's because it's on Switch and it runs great. It's a perfect experience on the Switch. And so yeah, I my we've had a really good 4 years of the system, and I expect we'll probably get another really great 3 to 4 years. I think that Nintendo's gonna have a really strong 2021 after what was a weaker 2020 due to the pandemic.
Yeah, it was kind of a weaker. Even when I was looking at my list of top 10 games, it was a lot more sparse of Nintendo things this time around, huh? Right. Because it really was. It was more Wii U ports, and I mean, Animal Crossing was huge, right? Yes. That was a big deal, and you can't underestimate that. But carrying the whole year on its back, and it's impressive that it kind of did do that, but it shouldn't have had to.
For me, the reason that the Switch goes in the best category more than anything else, though, is I don't want Nintendo to deviate from what they are doing with the Switch, other than the online. No. I want, if we get a Switch 2, if we get a Switch Pro, I want it just to continue to be a Switch. If we get a follow-up, if we get a next-gen system in 3 to 4 years, I want it to still be a Switch. This
Yeah,
is
I
what
mean,
I
my
want.
big thing is just slightly better hardware. Like, there's sometimes still frustrating when some games aren't like, don't have the smoothest performance,
Right.
whatever. And it usually for Nintendo games, it's not a huge issue. Like, honestly, even if there was a Switch 2 and it was like running games 60 frames per second with a nice resolution, and I still didn't have online, I still wouldn't even be that mad.
Same. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
This is what I want from now on. They have like figured it out. Like, just stick with this going forward, and I'll be happy. So, yeah, like for me,
so
I'm putting it in best. I don't know. I think,
yeah, the only thing, like literally, the only reason I would say not to is because online's bad, and two because it's like it's ongoing. But I whatever. Like I still know I love it right now. It's not like I'm going to like it less.
and it does feel like it's like in this lineage here with these other systems. It does feel like it is on the level with Super Nintendo, Game Boy, GameCube, and Switch. Like that feels
Yeah.
like the
Certainly my
Go
favorite
ahead.
console in a long time. Sorry.
Yes. No. Yeah. I couldn't think of the word I was gonna say anyhow. But yeah, it's one of it's my favorite console in a long time as well. I think that the Xbox Series X is a great console. I think the PlayStation 5 is a great console. But it's not it's really good hardware, and we'll see how they go over time and like how they grow. But I know I love the Switch, and it's like I would give up those other two systems before I would give up the Switch, and it's because of how it fits in my life, and that's very important to me right now. So yeah, I feel pretty good about this list though. Do we want to make any changes, any shifting up or down, or is this?
I
pretty
know, like
good?
it's like I'm going like tier by tier and seeing like does something not belong with the rest of those, and I'm like, no, not really.
No.
That all looks about right, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I still the NES I think probably could be in good, but I'm fine with it in great. I do love it. So.
I want it in great. I'm going to.
Good. Okay. No.
Nothing but for my love of Mega Man, I'm gonna keep it in great.
Yeah, I love the original Legend of Zelda and the original Super Mario Brothers and all the Mario Brothers games on that system are
Plus,
fantastic.
that basically is the start of the industry as we know it.
Yes,
So
yes.
give it a little
Agreed.
point. We have some boost for that.
Cool. All right. So yeah, then let's just do it. So in bad, we have the Virtual Boy and the Wii U. Wii U also had Breath of the Wild, and we only mentioned that for the Switch, but it doesn't count.
Doesn't count.
Yeah, it doesn't really count. Not really. In okay, we have the Game Boy Color and the Wii. In good is Game Boy, Nintendo 64. Great is NES, DS, 3DS. And then the best on this tier list is the Super Nintendo, Game Boy Advance, GameCube, and Switch.
Do you think any of these are going to be controversial picks?
I'm sure. Yes, I'm positive though. I don't know which ones though. I think I'll probably get a little bit of flack for putting Wii U in bad.
I bet some people are going to be mad that Nintendo 64 is only good, and some people are going to think GameCube is overrated. Although I still want to hear the argument. I still don't understand how the GameCube is anything less than incredible.
It really just comes down to bad taste, Mike. It's just people don't know what good games are. It really is. No, I feel good about this. So, yeah, all right. Well done, Mike. So you're going to write a story about this? You're going to put it? Well, you got.
Yeah. Once you do that, I'll do a little, story basically telling you to watch this video. Maybe I'll actually write out the list. I don't know. Maybe I won't.
I'll let you decide. Yeah, I'll get the video put together tonight. I think
this was fun. I think we should do more of these.
I agree. Maybe we could do these like once a week, once every other week. We'll figure it out. But yeah, this is good. Yeah. Cool. Thank you for watching, everybody. You can get more from me and Mike at GamesBeat.com. Mike, you want to tell people like where they can follow you, or where they can get more of you?
Yeah, it's not the show. They can follow me wherever they want to.
Cool. Sounds good. Let's get out of here then. Thanks for watching, everybody. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.
GameCube's the actual best one, though.